Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about American politics, and I'm going to talk about one thing I did not like in... Actually, no, this isn't something I didn't like in Dinesh D'Souza's Trump, Vindicating Trump. Something that I think I have a different take than most people on. All right, let's talk about... I want to talk about American politics. I want to talk about Dinesh D'Souza's Vindicating Trump. A friend of mine invited me to this film, and I went and saw it, and I paid attention, and I took a bunch of notes, and in the dark, it's a skill I have built over years, because I've needed to, because I have hundreds of movie reviews, and so basically, I want to talk about this one thing. So, Dinesh D'Souza jumps in, and he starts talking about the Stop the Steal Republican stuff, right? So, he said that Dinesh D'Souza said that most Republicans believe that the 2024 election was rigged, right, by the Democrats, and that they submitted thousands and thousands and thousands, maybe low millions, of fake ballots, right? And then Dinesh D'Souza totally broke down how it would happen, right? Now, I'm not going to repeat all the nonsense. Actually, I don't even think it was nonsense. Basically, you know what? I guess I will. I'll break it down. So here's what they said. They said in virtually every state, you could buy ballots. You could literally buy the paper they're printed on. It's completely legal to buy the paper they're printed on, to buy, and then to print them out, and then to fill them out for anyone who hasn't voted, even people who are not American citizens. And you only break the law when you actually submit those. But you can buy the paper, you can print them out legally, you can buy the steel ballot boxes, you can be ready with every registered, and you could even get a list of everyone who did not vote in the last election, and then you could fill out the ballots for them. You only break the law when you submit them, right? And you only break the law when you submit them, and now you have submitted somebody's signature, and that's not your signature, and you actually signed it, right? That's a problem, okay? So that right there is where you're breaking the law, right? So then they're like, oh, now, and then so Dinesh D'Souza's like, yeah, so they totally rigged it in the 2020 election, and now we're gonna stop that, right? And you're like, I'm like, okay, how are you gonna stop that? So here's my issue, right? So one, I really get frustrated with right-wing people when they don't be logical, right? So I unfortunately saw Sound of Freedom last year, and Sound of Freedom was like, oh my goodness, there's this terrible problem in South America. Thank goodness this American Los Angeles police officer went down there to fix it. And I was like, wait a second, what now? He don't live in Mexico. He's got absolutely no jurisdiction down there. What are you talking about, right? Like, you're telling me this story about somebody who went down there with no jurisdiction to solve a problem they have no jurisdiction to solve? Same issue here, right? There, and Trump is like, make sure you protect the polls. I'm like, protect the polls? The poll workers are supposed to do that, right? If you can't get and this is the issue, right? This stuff is already set, right? Like, so the poll workers are Democrat in these places where they're alleging that they're fixing the thing, right? So to me, I listen to some like, you have absolutely no jurisdiction to go over there and ask them anything, right? Like, you come rolling up open carry, or just even like, hey, show me the blah, 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 blahs. I'm like, dude, you ain't got no business there, right? So Republicans have no business at polls if they're not poll workers, right? So here's my take. I listened to Dinesh D'Souza's movie, and I'm like, if you're going to stop the steal, the only way you could possibly do that, in my humble opinion, okay, the only way that they could do this, I'm saying the only way, if you listen to Dinesh D'Souza, there's a logical step, okay, if you were serious, right? Now, the problem is this is illegal, and I don't think any American should do anything illegal. But what they're saying is that the Dems are already doing massive crime, right? Well, oh, yeah, here you go. A friend of mine gave me a great article about, I've had my bike stolen 3 times, right? And so this guy's like, hey, I know your bike got stolen 3 times. Here's an article about people in Philadelphia who are they're actually gathering together as groups of bicyclists going and finding the bikes and then having 20 bicyclists walk into the thieves' property and take the bikes back. Right? I'm like, oh, that's quite interesting. Thank you for showing me this article. Right? So to me, the only logical way to stop, if Dinesh D'Souza is right, there's no ability for any Republican to protect the polls. That's absurd. In fact, that seems like a formula for something that's going to go south and somebody going to get click, right? Like, it's not going to go well, right? I think that's a bad formula, right? But what it does is like, wait a second, you Republicans figured out every single way that you would actually rig ballots. So then why wouldn't somebody who wanted Trump to win, why wouldn't they just do exactly what the Democrats are doing, and then every single one of those fake votes would have 2 votes, and then it would be super easy. So if both the Republicans and the Democrats did exactly the illegal maneuver of the, if the Republicans matched the illegal maneuver, which is completely doable, right, of the Democrats, then every single fake vote would have 2, right? And it'd be super easy to find them, right? And then when they did, the recount, they'd be like, oh, throw out all the ones where there's 2 of them, right? That could actually work. The problem is the Republicans cannot do that because they're moral people, right? And they cannot, take an illegal action, right? So then my point is, if you can't take the illegal action, what is the point of pointing this all out? Because there's nothing that can logically be done. You don't have jurisdiction. You're not a poll worker. Don't start showing up at polls harassing real poll workers, right? You got beat, right? Like you can't, so you can't, if you can't get poll workers on the site, you're done, right? And so I feel what Dinesh D'Souza and what Donald Trump were suggesting of protecting the polls without jurisdiction is outrageously dangerous, right? And I think Americans could get hurt, and I don't think that's appropriate personally, right? So Dinesh, I don't like it when people are like, hey, here's this problem. And I'm like, okay, what's the solution? And they're like, why don't we send a bunch of unauthorized, non-jurisdictional protectors? I'm like, because that's called vigilantism, and that's not cool unless you're Batman, and these guys aren't Batman, right? It's so I really feel that's my take on, and I know the Stop the Steal thing is very complicated, but to me there was only one logical conclusion of that, and we can't take that action because Republicans aren't immoral, right? And I do think it would be outrageously immoral to, not just illegal, immoral, right? To do it's immoral to do election fraud. Do I need to spell that out? I guess today we do, right? It's immoral to do election fraud, and no Republican should do it. Even though it is logically the only way to stop this that I see right now, right? And that the plan that Dinesh D'Souza says is absolutely nothing but a formula for, in my humble opinion, political violence to occur, and so that was very disheartening. Just watching the film and then walking away with oh my gosh, what's going to happen from all this, right? And that's very disheartening, right? So that is one thing I definitely did not like out of Dinesh D'Souza's film. I feel like there should have been a real answer there, and there was definitely not a real answer. There's a real the only thing that will get produced by Dinesh D'Souza's plan, in my humble opinion, is political violence. And the only possibility of actually stopping the steal, cannot be done by Republicans because it is outrageously immoral, right? So that's the whole of it. That is the whole of it. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.